Hey everybody! All right, this is a big week because on Friday, testing javascript.com will start accepting early bird purchases of the course. I'm super excited about this. I think you're going to love it. And if you're not already subscribed to my newsletter, where you can get some early bird discounts and updates and stuff, then I recommend that you do that because it's going to be great. So yeah, all week and all next week I'm going to be doing scheduled live streams where I'm going to focus a little bit more on answering people's questions, and the topics will be around testing. But yeah, so today we're going to be talking about Prettier and how I talk about Prettier being a static analysis testing tool, just like ESLint or TypeScript or something. I don't suggest that it replaces those things, but it goes alongside those. So if you haven't heard of Prettier, I highly recommend that you give it a look. I'm going to refresh this so you can see the sweet animation on the page, prettier.io. And so yeah, I'm just going to show you a couple examples of why I think Prettier can help you in your code. So this is the Prettier playground. If you go to try it out, that'll take you to the playground. And I'm going to just show you a couple examples of code that Prettier will clean up for you to make your intent more clear, or actually show you what the code is actually going to do. So this is what we're gonna excuse me. We're gonna start out with this confusing order of operations. So like, don't look at the. Actually, I wonder if I can. I probably can't hide that, can I? Maybe I'll. We'll do this. Just pop open this little notepad thing. So if I had a variable a that is equal to 3 times 4 divided by 6 plus 7 times 2, divided by 4, like you might be able to calculate that out, but what makes this difficult to read is the order of operations. So do you multiply 3 and 4 first and then the divide by 6, or do you 4 divide by 6 and then times 3? And then what about this plus? Do I add those together before I multiply by 2? Like, so and this is something that we learn in our in math class and stuff, and though that order of operations applies in coding as well. Yeah, like it sure would be nice if we had like some parentheses here or something to make that more clear. So that's one thing that Prettier is going to do for us, is it will add some parentheses to make it more clear what's happening first. And we do need to know that this plus is going to kind of be applied last. So we'll evaluate all this stuff on this side and then all this stuff on this side. So Prettier's not going to add like multiple layers of parentheses, but it does add those extra parentheses to kind of improve intent. And so if you're like, oh, actually I want that 4 divided by 6 to happen first, then you can add parentheses yourself, and Prettier will leave those alone because Prettier doesn't actually change the behavior of the program. So and the same thing applies to if we go like B and C or Z. Like, okay, so what order are these going to happen in? And maybe does it matter that it's an and here? Maybe if it's an or and then an and, does that change the order of operations? So let's bring that over. And so it actually does matter that the and is going to take precedence over the or, which is interesting and maybe a fact that you knew, maybe you didn't, but Prettier is going to make that much more clear. So if you type out some code like this and in your mind it makes sense, Prettier is going to reformat it so that other people, it makes sense as they're reading the code, and maybe you in the future, when you've moved on from this code, you come back. Thanks to Prettier, it'll format it nicely. So that's order of operations. Confusing ternary. So lots of people don't like ternaries. I love ternaries, especially in JSX. And Prettier is what makes the ternaries really practical for me. So I'm going to make a function component, and we're going to return some, like a div here. And then we'll do, this is going to take users. And actually, one thing that I see a lot of people doing is I see users dot length and div users.length. There's, whatever. I don't know. They'll iterate over the users. So we'll say users.map u and then u.name or something. Probably do that in li and whatever. But yeah, so I see a lot of people doing this, except they know how to how to close their doodads. There we go. Okay, cool. So and I'm just going to change that print width just a tad because my screen isn't wide enough. Yeah, so I see a lot of people doing stuff like this. I strongly recommend against doing this because what happens is if users is an empty array of 0, then what you're going to have is a div that has the number 0 in it. So don't do this. What you should do instead is a ternary. So you can say user.length ? Otherwise null. And so yeah, ternaries are awesome. And so here we'll say otherwise null. What if we say user's length is greater than 2, then we'll map over them. Otherwise, we want to render, I don't know, a div that says you only have, or actually we'll start here. You only have, or you have less than 2 users. Okay, cool. Here, I'm going to copy all this over because I don't want to have to format that. Okay, that's nice. So, like before, before my ternary looked like total garbage, and then prettier makes it look a lot nicer. So you can actually read from top to bottom what's going on. So if the user's length is 2, then do this stuff, and like whatever's at this indentation, anything beyond the indentation here, and you keep on going until the next thing that matches that indentation. And so you can say, okay, user's length 2, then do the stuff that's between here and the closing parentheses. And here we have that double sad face on the left and the right. And then otherwise, we'll do everything that goes between that closing parentheses and the next closing parentheses. So I think it reads nice, even if it looks ugly to you. And it's one of those things that you can kind of figure out over time. So let's try a nested ternary. So if the user's length is greater than 2, then we'll do this stuff. Otherwise, if the user's length is 1, then we'll do you have only one user. Otherwise, we'll do if you have 2 users. Okay, cool. And we'll just copy that over. Oh, I typed it out perfect. So it still reads nicely to me because we have everything between here and here applies to this condition. And then everything between here and here applies to this condition. If you were to write this out as a bunch of if-else statements, it would actually look very similar to this. Let's do that. If users.length is greater than 2, then here we'll do x equals whatever, so that it parses correctly. Else if this condition, then say x equals else it, or we'll just do else. That's the last condition here. X equals that. We'll just copy that over. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, those two actually look pretty much the same to me, and so that's why I don't mind nested ternaries, because it actually most of the reason people don't like them is because they don't stop to think, is this not readable? They've just learned that nested ternaries are bad. But prettier makes them nice. And so even if you write this in a terrible way that's very hard to read and you're like, what on earth is going on? Prettier will make it nice. So people who come into the code base see something that is just as readable as ifs and elses. Okay, so that helps us with our ternaries. Now, yeah, never thought nested ternary was a thing. Ta-da! It's great. Yeah, you can just keep on going forever and ever. Okay, so let's talk about missing semicolons. So I actually prefer not to have semicolons in my code. And the reason for that, I've got this blog post, semicolons, that I'll paste this in the chat here. I always use this blog post so I don't have to get in a fight about whether semicolons are good or not. But yeah, so basically my feeling around semicolons is there are more rules of when not to use semicolons than when to use them. And so if you say that you have to use semicolons in your code, then you have to learn a whole bunch of rules of when you don't have to use semicolons. Like for example, is this an expression or a statement? Like the basic rule is every statement should end in a semicolon. Sort of. Is this function a statement or an expression? I don't know, but like it doesn't end in a semicolon. Prettier's not adding one for me, so I guess it's yeah. Like honestly, that's every statement ends in a semicolon. That's yeah, that's true. But like there are lots of places that you add semicolons that you like do not apply. So like for let I equal 0, semicolon, I is less than 10, semicolon, I plus plus, and then do I put a semicolon there? I don't know. Like, so there are tons of rules. Anyway, this isn't about whether the merits of using semicolons. But there is a situation here where Prettier will help you whether or not you're using semicolons. So if I say const message equals hello world, and then I say 1, 2, 3 dot map x plus 1 or something like that. If I wanted to do, yeah, whatever. I think it reveals it right here. So what Prettier is going to do is it's going to change it over to be a string, and then right next to it is the open parentheses. And the way that operates is not going to be what you expect. And it's adding these parentheses around here because what we're doing here is we're not actually creating a new array, we're accessing a property. And so these commas, Prettier's like, oh, that's the comma operator. And so we're actually going to access index 3, which will give us this L right here. And then we're going to try and call map on the L. So it's not doing what we want it to do, and Prettier is revealing that to us. So you can solve this by using semicolons or prepending a semicolon ahead. So here I'm going to change this to no semi. This is what I like to do. So yeah, you can pre-append this with a semicolon, or like what's even better is I just don't do that, and I'll say numbers equals that, and then I'll numbers map, because I think that's kind of weird to just have random arrays initialized and then mapped over. Just give that thing a name. So I pretty much like never have this problem because I never just initialize an array with some things and then map over them. I'd always just give it a variable. But if that's what you want to do, then Prettier will reveal that you've got a problem. In addition, I also have the ESLint rule that will tell you, hey, I think what you're trying to do here is not what's going to happen. You need to add a semicolon. And so there's a rule for that in Prettier, and I recommend using that. Excuse me. Okay, so that's that. And then finally, render props. So this one's a kind of interesting one. Most render prop components, if I do class my comp extends react.component render return this dot props dot children data hi whatever. So that's a render prop component. It's not very useful. But if I wanted to use this here, then this is what I would do, and I'd say we'll get that data and we'll render out the data or whatever. Okay, so here's the problem that I've found is sometimes people like to format their stuff like this. And here, let's see. I need to make sure that this formats in a certain way so it reveals it. Normally your stuff is going to be a fair amount longer than this. So we're going to say div your data is data. There we go. Okay, so yeah, actually, if we just do this all in one line here, Okay, so I see people writing their stuff like this sometimes. What Prettier is going to format this to is it'll add these curly braces and the space. And you're like, what on earth? Why is it doing that? That's so weird. And that's because you have this extra space there. And so the Prettier will make that explicit so that you know that this is a problem. This applies not only to your own render props, but to like the render prop that comes from the context API, the consumer. If you have more than one child and that child is not a function, so the children here is going to be an array, so we're trying to invoke an array here. That's what's going on. So if you have that scenario, then Prettier is going to make that more clear by adding these explicit spaces here. And I think that's kind of handy. And so then the way that you fix this is you just, just remove those, and then Prettier won't add that. Yeah, so that's that. Let me check out some questions. If anybody has questions, go ahead and ask them here. Once I run out of questions, I'm going to stop things. Tomorrow, actually, before I get into questions, if you go to kcd.im dev tips, I just sent that to the chat, then you can check out the playlist that has, actually, I'll just do it here too, dev tips. So this is the playlist that has all of the live streams that I'm going to be doing for the next couple weeks, as well as the ones that I've done in the past. But yeah, so we're doing how Prettier is a testing tool, but also a bunch of others, especially be there on the testing Q&A, because that one I'm just going to look at the chat and answer questions until they're all gone. So yeah, every single day at the same time, every morning, well, morning for me, whenever that is for you, and until the day that we officially launch the course. Okay, cool. Let me answer some questions here. Here, actually, what I'll do is I'll answer them here so you can also see Q&A, because okay. So we've got, coincidentally, I just started a Cypress project and not using semicolons. Being in QA, I'm also in static analysis tools. Our QA tools camp. Yeah, thanks, Mike. I agree. Can you post your Prettier ESLint rules? Yeah, sure. ESLint config Kent C Dodds. So this is my ESLint config. And I don't know, yeah, my Prettier RC is in there as well. This is the Prettier RC that I use in all of my projects. Here, I'll configure it right here. So my print width is the default of 80. My tab width is the default. I don't use tabs. I prefer single quote. I don't like bracket spacing. I'm fine with bracket spacing because, like, I've been the last 3 years at PayPal. They like bracket spacing, so that's what I do at work. But I don't really like it that much. I don't really care that much. I've grown accustomed to both, but I prefer no bracket spacing. Prose wrap, I always prose wrap. That only really applies in Markdown, I think. But I kind of like prose wrap. I have no semi. JS bracket, same line. That's super weird. So yeah, I don't do that. Here, let me see if I can show that. Foo, bar, baz, buzz, on click. This thing is long, is very, 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 there we go. Very, 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 very long. So when you do JSX bracket, same line, it's going to put that closing bracket on the same line, and that's just super weird. So yeah, don't do that. Arrow parens, I avoid them. That's like const foo equals bar, and then we could have foo 2 arg, and then foo 3 like args, and foo 4, we'll say arg 1, arg 2, whatever. Okay, so what this arrow parens is doing is, if I say always, then it will put parentheses all the time. If you say avoid, then if you only have one argument, then it will remove the parentheses. That's all that does. And I prefer avoiding. Yeah, these things are irrelevant. to configuration. So, oh, sorry, trailing comma. I do all. And the reason I do all is because I think it's better. So, foo, 1, 2, 3. Here, we'll just keep doing this. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. So this applies when you're calling a function, when you're listing out a parameter list, when you have an object with properties. What trailing comma will do is with ES5, it will only apply to arrays and objects, and it will not apply to function calls. But with all, then it will apply to function calls and parameter lists as well. The reason that I like that is if I add another, then it only adds one, like in Git, only one line will be changed. It'll just be a line added. Whereas if we didn't have that comma there in the first place, then it would be 2 lines changed, and I don't like that. It's kind of annoying. And when I'm in the code, I have to add that comma. And if I wanted to move this around or something, like we're going to move 3 to another place or something, I'd like not having to worry about the commas and stuff. So hopefully that was helpful, insightful, and interesting. Okay, let's check out other questions. Have you experienced any other strangely formatted code after running it through Prettier? I wouldn't say strangely formatted code. Yeah, I don't know. Like in the early days, some of the code was kind of weird, but they cleaned up a couple things, especially that ternaries in JSX was really cleaned up. But yeah, it's like for the last year, it's just been fantastic. If you don't like the way that Prettier is formatting your code, it's because you care too much about code formatting. That's my take. Good question, Will. Is that a Prettier playground? Can you post a link to that? Yes, if you, observant one, look at the URL, it's right there. It's prettier.io playground. Here, I'll paste the full thing so you can see what I'm working in right now. I don't know if that'll work. Yeah, it's too long. Sorry. You cannot see the full thing, but you could pause the video and type it out yourself. It's not that long. Play around, have fun. Hi Kent, I work at a company where our front-end library is Vue. What's the best argument, in your opinion, to change from Vue to React? On my previous company, we used React a lot. So that's if your company is using and is happy with Vue, then take a look, or then like stick with it, I think. But I really like React for a number of reasons. I'm a huge fan of the non-mutation based API. Actually, you know what? There's a really fantastic talk at Framework Summit YouTube. I don't know if it's on YouTube yet or not. Well, let's see if we can find. Oh, have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? YouTube. Sweet, there we go. Let's see if they've gotten the videos up yet. No, nothing yet. So pretty soon you will get a some videos on there. This was just like 2 weeks ago that this conference happened, and Andrew Clark gave a talk about the trade-offs that React has, and those trade-offs are the ones that I prefer. So you can watch that. Okay, cool. And in my opinion, okay, so front-end tips prefers React even when you want to create more complex logic around components, abstractions, etc. I agree with you. Yeah. Yep, I agree. Okay, any last questions? I don't think so, so I'm gonna just yeah, I'm gonna close this out. Hopefully this was fun. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about I totally forgot, so we'll just go to that. Oh, my opinion on WebAssembly. I'll answer that here in a sec. Yeah, so 100% code coverage for sorry, 100% coverage is too high for apps. That's what we're going to talk about. Yep, I agree. Okay. All right. So the question about WebAssembly, I think it's fantastic. I don't think I'll ever personally write WebAssembly code, and I think most JavaScript engineers will still continue to write JavaScript, but I can see some scenarios where like maybe frameworks or other things will take advantage of WebAssembly. I think it's cool. All right. Yeah. So join me tomorrow, same time, and we will see you all later. Bye.